Even you looking outside and saying, gee, look at that. Sadhguru says this and Tony Robbins says that. What's written in a book? And all these people say, if you keep seeking for the truth in the universe out there, it comes a point where you're also suggesting that it's not within you, that it doesn't lie in you. And you being the best expert on yourself can find what you need inside of you, just like those greats have. I was recently informed that 96% of all people watching, that means you, are not actual subscribers to the channel. So take a second and hit subscribe.
Welcome to The Point with Jeff Spikes, the show about achieving goals, embracing growth, and finding your true path. And now, here's your host, Jeff Spikes.
Hello and welcome to The Point. This is your host, Jeff Spikes, and you're the point. You and being the best resource for you is the point of this show. Are you aware? Are you deeply aware that you are the best expert in yourself? In the world of experts, of all things that people can be experts on, no one can be a better expert than you. Not a medical professional, not a coach, not a psychiatrist. Nobody can be an expert on you. Only you have had your experiences up to now. What does that mean? Have you ever stopped, considered, and thought about what it means to be an expert? Do you ever point at external things like, boy, Tony Robbins has this great message, and maybe you've gone to one of his seminars and you've jumped up and down and gotten into the physicality of it and made some changes and felt that amazing pumped up feeling and did all those things and went home and thought, man, I can do this, right? You can, and just really gotten into that. How long did that last for you? Did you know, and I love Tony Robbins. He's got amazing content. He has made such an impact in the universe. This is clearly a positive thing that his name comes up in this. But that's not the point. Tony Robbins isn't the point. You are. So how long do you feel motivated? Maybe you went to a motivational speech. I went to a Les Brown talk and was motivated for at least a week. I was so pumped up, and I was forever a fan of Les Brown. He had such charisma. He had such a great story of how he was talked to and what he was told as a kid versus what he became. And it just instills this belief that you can do it too. Then he put time and effort into being an expert, how he could speak to others so that he could consider the audience and really consider who you are, speak to you directly. That's an admirable thing. But when you go and do that, how long does it last? Because external motivation lasts for 3 days, maybe a week. And some of that is how excited you become about that. So about the motivation, about the ideas that it gives you and the forward movement that it gives you. Now, sometimes it's so motivating that whatever happens in that 3 to 5 days of excitement triggers a chain reaction and gets some momentum going. You're able to make some phenomenal change. Do you take the credit for that, or do you give the credit back to the speaker or the person that was doing it? Because guess what? You're doing the work. And there's not a speaker or a professional or a coach or anybody that I know, not a guru, not a yogi, or a pastor that wants for you to take what they're saying and mimic it. Or now that does bring up an idea around the thought process around when we do mirror others in order to grow and try on something new. It's not the discussion for this podcast. For this episode, for you, what we're talking about more is not the fake it till you make it. Not the I'm going to try something on new that I'm not accustomed to, so I'm going to borrow yours. Because guess what? The fake it till you make it, or the mimicking, is for the design purpose of you to take ownership of it and make it your own. It's not to completely masterfully duplicate it exactly the way someone else does it and then do that. And if that happens, you can quickly become adapted from your true self and just be working a strategy, which we talk a lot about here. So does this get confusing for you? Because sometimes this is how you could get stuck in the mud. This is how you could end up doubting. There's been a lot of discussion the last few weeks. A number of the episodes have been about automation. We talked about artificial intelligence and how the best way to be most prepared for what's coming is to get into this human automation where we intentionally automate our behaviors instead of falling into the natural automations that we create through routines. So intentionally having daily routines and everything else really is a win. So all of that comes around to this conversation where today there's a consideration of what happens when a team comes together, when a team needs to automate. Now, first responders have things for this. Every TV show you see that has a firehouse in it will have a moment where the bell rings and everyone rushes, and they've practiced this process enough times that it's fully automated and the right person is in the right place at the right time, and that engine rolls out as efficiently as possible. That is in the response world, automation. That's how we intentionally automate, is going through those steps. And we think to ourselves, well, why is that needed? If you have clients and customers and they have a need, if you automate your response, you don't lose any. If you automate your response, you get there quickly. When I finally decided, when I decided I was going to be a certified coach, and I went to go find a school that would train me, that would give me what I need to become a fully certified and accredited coach. And I wanted to go through the highest level of executive coaching possible. Some of the coaching schools I reached out to never got back to me, and some of them only got back to me a week and a half later. And the one I ended up working with by chance was the one that got back to me the same day, and then was immediately ready to schedule an appointment to have a conversation and to discover more about what I needed. So if you have clients, how quickly are you able to reach out to them and find out what their interests are and what their needs are? So having an automation process as a team is important, because what happens when you go on vacation? Now, in some instances, it is more important than others. We have a motto in the company that says, we are not afraid of big problems, right? There is not a problem we won't tackle, address, and run after. Transforming healthcare, the opiate crisis or opioid crisis. There's a list of tough problems that we've addressed. The point is, when you're facing a challenge, or when you're, do you have the right automation? So there's industries, healthcare supply chain. We've created a label for TAG Inc., who does a handful of different services, consulting services specifically for healthcare supply chain and accounting. They have exclusively served that community, the cost cycle communities, those that manage the cost cycle for healthcare. So this isn't the patient care, and this isn't the revenue cycle and all the insurance billing and all those other complexities, which is mostly what a lot of the politics is about these days when we think about healthcare. This is about everything else. This is about making sure that doctors and nurses have what they need to take care of the patients, and making sure that the patients have the things that are needed for them, like beds and chairs and other things. So this population of people that are serving in this way are historically an underappreciated community and necessary evil almost on a backside. 30 years ago, they were in the basement of most hospitals, and that has entirely changed in the last number of years. And we've deployed a product with TAG that specifically goes in and helps that team work together, get their identity right as a group, as individuals in a group, and then really get these human automations in place so that not only can they be prepared for whatever next crisis may happen that will make certain goods unavailable, certain products and safety equipment and other things unavailable, and what are their backup plans? What are all the things? How to deploy quickly to answer to any crisis, but also how to make sure nothing gets missed in this complex system. Because what happens when the Suez Canal backs up, or what happens when, and there's so many possible ifs. The motto is that we don't shy away from problems based on the perceived size of them, because that's all a concept. That's all a construct of belief. Why have intention around what gets automated and what's that process look like? And we've done some of that. We will do more. But I think it's time. And a couple of the feedback pieces that came in have had me thinking that it's really time to cover something a little different as far as what can block you from making those decisions and taking the action needed to do that. And even when you're making intentional forward action, what's the greatest potential enemy of that? I might have ranted for a minute, as I've been known to do, but the three enemies, there's three main, enemy is not the right word. You don't really ever want to think about enemies in this context. But the bottom line is there's doubt. And if you get into doubt, the doubt also relates to number 3 on this list. If you get into doubt, it's just an unnecessary defeating mechanism. It's one thing to question yourself, to query, to was that the best thing, to reevaluate, to look in hindsight. But the decision you make is the decision you make. The only thing you can do afterwards is to learn from it. So if you've learned that it was the best answer, the best decision you could have made, then that's what you learn. If you learn the benefit of that decision, you can anchor that and you can have more evidence. If the decision was not the best decision and you could have made another decision that you perceive would have been better, then you can evaluate that and you can have an alternative. And you can then say, you can then look at what you've learned from it and what you want to take forward. But to doubt in advance, that's to doubt in hindsight. To doubt in advance whether or not you can do it is to presuppose and determine failure before you ever start. In a real situation, if you know you can't do something, then you can either do what's needed to be able to do it safely or pick another path. But doubt is an unnecessary, very debilitating thought and emotion pattern to get into. Now, I'm going to give you a caveat. If you're wondering, if you're 50 years old and you used to be able to jump from one building to the next and you haven't tried it in 30 years, doubt yourself. That might be wisdom, not doubt. So let's not get confused with and unrealistic with it. There's a couple things I have done in my life where I thought, maybe I could have questioned whether or not that was realistic to do. And so really that's in humor. We're not going, the idea is stop doubting yourself. When you know what you know it. The next thing about that is negative self-talk. Now, if you got doubt and negative self-talk, you're just piling on things. And negative self-talk isn't completely about just a thought or an idea. It's really when we aggressively say words to ourselves or against ourselves. Self-deprecation is a bigger word where we really depreciate our value and we depreciate and diminish our spirit and our purpose with words or thoughts. Another side of that as far as negative self-talk is beating yourself up, right? And when we're doing that, sometimes it's not too difficult once you start to branch out and start getting into case building and building a story against yourself of how it could have been better. And that can then be dangerous. So we want to stay out of that completely and just move on. But here's the real killer. The real killer is but after anything happened, is the questions of hoping it went well, hoping we did a good job. It's deceptive, right? Because hope on the front end of anything is positive. Hope is almost the opposite of doubt on the front end of something. But I'm just looking at my notes for a second, and it's this idea of having afterthoughts that presuppose that we didn't have value. So it's one thing to just innately say, I don't have value, and to just start talking to ourselves negatively in a way that depreciates and devalues ourselves, or to have doubt because from a place of self-doubt in the way of thinking that we don't have value. That's all in one energy of expression. And it's not conducive with the energy of expression with gratitude. which is what makes gratitude so valuable and important when it's expressed and when there's a system you use that you automate to show up with gratitude, right? It's almost difficult. You'll notice, right? So this is something I'm experiencing right now, just authentically or vulnerably. I'll tell you, I'm having a little difficult time finding the right words. I've automated so much on the gratitude side that it almost gets clunky and difficult to talk about self-doubt and self-deprecation. And it's also something I don't really want to bring back into my framework in reality. But the idea afterwards, that's the danger, is that we don't know what we don't know, and we don't realize. So if you don't realize that you're putting out in the universe this idea that what you did may not have added value, so that's this confidence piece of walking away from things. So as a speaker, I walk away and I laid down what I laid down. I gave what I gave. I did what I did. I intentionally don't walk away saying, I hope it reached a lot of people, or I hope people did X. I walk away knowing that the intention of breathing some positivity and some life and some enthusiasm and some type of forward change into people in the audience, I turn that towards a gratitude for the ability to do that work and to make that difference with people and to be available, because the other can diminish the actual effort and the actual result. An example, when I started this podcast, at some point into it, somebody said they were watching it, and I went, oh no. Right? I said, oh no. And they looked at me and they were like, what? What do you mean, oh no? It's awesome. I'm getting a lot out of it. And in my mind, it was, are you sure? And they were very taken aback. And we recovered it. We got past it. I just got truthful and honest and told them what I was thinking, because when I started this knowing it wasn't at the quality level, and that I wasn't expertise as expertise at it as I would like to be. So I was being self-critical, which is part of that line of self-deprecation. And I realized and so it becomes a practice of not worrying about it, saying, wow, and learning how to be a part of an energy of positive flow and not adding a big rock in the middle of it that slows that down or diminishes it or makes it less. Because I lessened the mood. You could feel it happen. So you don't want to, after you accomplish or do something, finish a project at work, build something at your house, clean something, anything you do, from a manual task to a major project or a mission at church or anything. You want to come back afterwards with a concept of positive, intentional gratitude for the ability to show up and let go of the results. Because as soon as you bring into the conversation, gee, I hope that was good, that's bringing in doubt. That's bringing in the possibility that it wasn't. We want to stop doing that. So you definitely want to consider and think about, if you do that, and look at changing the way that you're using that language to not bring any doubt into a situation. If you are here and you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to this channel and kick this thing up over 2,000 subscribers. It's only going to take a few of you. If you're listening on a podcast, we appreciate the likes and follows. But more than anything, when you walk away from here, know what you're capable of. Know what you're capable of and step into it. Do it with confidence and do it with intention, and set the steps forward, set the stages you'll walk through, the actions you'll take. Create the mindset of doing while you stand up tall and think yourself all the way through to the end and to after you've done what you expected to do. And imagine and prepare to walk through that and walk past it in gratitude, and maintain the knowledge that you were just able to express yourself and to handle a project or whatever it is And that is you being the best of you. That's you being your best expert, knowing how you best move forward. If you add in these three other things, the doubt, the negative self-talk, or these post ideas of hope, and that add some type of possibility that it wasn't worthwhile. Let's reframe and rework that and make sure that you are intentionally moving forward in your best self, because no one can be better at being you than you. No one can be better at being you than you. Everything else in your life is a resource. And I'll close with this idea that we've talked about before of even when you're looking at experts and taking on experts, even when you're listening to this and you take on an idea or a concept, don't take it on as mine. Don't take on what anyone says as theirs. Make sure if you take it on for yourself, you make it your own. You do it enough in the framework you're given to help you learn it, and then take out of it what you want, what works for you, and leave the rest. And then you can share it with others authentically as something you've done. You can always give credit as to that you learned it by practicing a process or working on something from a class or a course or a podcast or a seminar that you went to. You went to that seminar and that's where it all began. But even you looking outside and saying, gee, look at that Sadhguru says this, and Tony Robbins says that, and and what's written in a book and what all these people say, if you keep seeking for the truth in the universe out there, you're also, it comes a point where you're also suggesting that it's not within you, that it doesn't lie in you. And you being the best expert on yourself can find what you need inside of you, just like those greats have. And it's about being in flow in the universe, and it's about being in a positive flow with those around you in your communities. Great seeing you here. Till next week, peace and love.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. Please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.